Welcome back, teammates, to our next safety chat. I'm Senior Master Sgt. Ontiveros from the Air Force Safety Center.
I'm Chief Master Sgt. Kevin James, Safety Career Field Manager.
Today we're going to talk about the barriers that we can encounter with regards to accelerating change. So Chief, in your perspective and from your level, what do you see are some of the barriers we encounter with regards to, say, new school versus old school?
Old school versus new school. I'm constantly asked about that, and I see it during the retraining process. I go through the retraining records. I get about 300 or so applicants per cycle, and I'm doing my best to bring in the best and the brightest in the career field. And I think we do a good job of that. But some of the feedback I get is the best and brightest, when they show up at base X, they're being met by a supervisor, sometimes military or civilian, that may not have attended any professional development lately, may not have taken their leadership role seriously, and that's their first introduction into the career field. So I am seeing that old school versus new school as a potential problem. Not all bases, but some bases. I do see that as a potential problem.
I can see that too. From personal experience, I've definitely dealt with meeting the old school mentalities that have been in place for a pretty long time, and it's they're uncomfortable to change what they perceive as not broken, or at least it's working right now and it's been working for the last whatever years. Why do we need to change it? So what can we do for our airmen as a whole to encourage them and continue to instill that passion and that drive to continue to push forward, even though they get met with some of this restraint? Or
I think one is our 1SOs, our airmen, need to gain credibility. I think as a leader, it's difficult when somebody that's brand new to a situation to automatically want to make changes without establishing themselves as credible, for one. And that goes, there's some etiquette to requesting change. I think you need to start with, identifying a problem first. You just don't want to show up, let's change this, this, and this, and this. How about you articulate it, be it in a Word document or something that identifies what that actual problem is and what this change will do, the benefits of making this change will do to correct that problem or improve that process. I think it starts with credibility with the 1SOs, and also better defining what it is they're trying to change. I see that a lot as folks want to make changes, but we aren't really identifying what it is we're trying to fix with that change. What problems are we trying to remedy with that change? So I think it starts there. Credibility with our 1SO airmen, and also doing a better job identifying why we want to make that change.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense actually, because I mean, when I first got in, and they always told me as being a safety professional, you got to be a salesman. But I always hated that phrase, but I think it makes sense with regards to this change, this accelerate change that we're doing now. We do need to be better salesmen of our ideas to create that buy-in, right? That buy-in is super important, especially for somebody that's been doing something for so long at a certain area, location, installation, whatever you want to call it. It is hard for them to see the benefit of a problem. So you have to, yes, definitely identify both. So this is the problem we have, this is what it's doing or not doing for us, and this is the solution, and this is what it can do, will do for us, lining all out, right? And then obviously, one way that I've done it before, when I met resistance, I have obviously taken up my chain, right? That's always been part of our culture, period. We have a chain for a reason. So with that, some people have that fear, right? And fear can go either way. Fear of the retribution that they could be met with if they pursue something, and or the fear of changing something that they have been doing for so long. So fear is a big thing, I think, that goes in this realm of change, right? What do you see, or have you seen in your time with regards to fear and change?
Fear, I guess you're talking from the supervisor's perspective, like fear of embracing change. I think that fear could come from a couple different places. One, maybe from experience. You know, one thing I think we sometimes fail to recognize from our, be it 0018s, that they bring a wealth of experience. With that experience, they've seen a lot of ideas come through, and some of those ideas have failed. That doesn't mean that we should be okay with not trying. And I think that's where a lot of their fear may come from, is they've seen failure in the past. We don't want to just quit trying new ideas because they failed before. So I think that's where that fear potentially comes from, is just a been there, done that mentality, which is not good. I think we need to fix that and help them understand and embrace why we want to make that change. That goes back to my point of, I think when we spell it out in a problem statement format, help sell the idea of making change. But if you just show up day one at your new safety office and you just demanding change, or at my last base we did it this way, or why are we doing this, why are we doing that? And it's great. I like the innovative ideas, but as a leader, you know, sometimes we just need to see those ideas probably better formulated so we can better understand, and not just be, you know, kind of spitballing. You know, everything can't be just spitball. You know,
right.
It has to be backed up with some ideas. So back to your original question, I believe that fear maybe just comes from having seen failure before, and maybe just afraid to step out a little bit.
I can get that. I think the biggest part of that is just understanding that the collaboration needs to be there. You know, the communication, of course, and the collaboration, we need it from both ends. The old school and new school need to understand and learn how to collaborate. Whether the military side, we usually come from we all come from the perspective and the understanding to get promoted, we have to fill up our APRs with amazingness, right? So we have to always find things that need to be changed or things that we could possibly change. So I think one of the things that should be done is also the ones that are asking for change and wanting change, make sure that what you're changing is truly worthy of the change and the effort that is going to take to change, not just to fill up a award packet or a bullet for your EPR. It's truly for bettering your processes and efficiencies at your location, or even for the Air Force as a whole.
I think that goes back to what I mentioned earlier with that credibility. You know, you need to establish yourself not as careerists, like you're only there to impress or do things so you can, you know, turn into a bullet. Because, you know, again, our civilian OSMs out there, our 0018s, even our military bosses and chief of safety, you know, they're pretty wise at that game. You know, you're not the first one to come through to try to do that.
Right.
But it goes to that credibility. So if you show up and that's the energy you're putting off, is that, you know, you're only here to make change so it sounds good or benefits you, you know, that can be where that, you know, fear comes from, that boss of not wanting to accept your ideas because they don't see them as truly valid or truly valuable to the mission.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So, because we've seen it a lot. We hear a lot of things throughout the field. I'm sure you get from your perspective and I get it from mine. There is a lot of tension out there. There is a lot of sometimes what we call, and everybody understands, drama. And that drama does, you know, go into everything and seep into every part of our lives. What is one of the biggest things we can do as an up and coming 1SO or 0018 and then obviously the old school mindsets, the senior NCOs and OSMs, to really ensure we're all moving forward and in the same direction at the same time with regards to accelerating change, making our processes better, meeting the needs of our up and coming, meeting the needs of the senior leadership as well. What can we do to make sure we're in lockstep together as a team?
I think we need to recognize that we need each other, and we're not separate. I know we have different series. AFSC is for the military, the Job Series 0018 is for the civilians, but together we have that same mission, and that is to safeguard airmen. And I think that's what we need to focus on, what our commonalities are, and that is, that overall mission. And then just recognize the importance of both, the value of both. I don't want our young folks probably not appreciating the experience that the 0018s have. Yes, they may be older, may not be as hip, may not be on social media and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, but that's okay. They probably have experienced far more throughout their sometimes military career and into their civilian career than this new 1SO that's barely completed their CCs. So that's what I don't want to happen. And what I want to happen is us to recognize the value of both, and then the commonality of what our common mission is. That's to safeguard airmen. So I think we need to go back to that starting point and revisit that often, and not just focus on the negative. It's easy to identify what's wrong in a situation, but we rarely talk about what's right. How many safety officers out there are doing it right? How many 0018s, senior NCOs out there are connecting and gelling and collaborating and being successful? I think it's probably happening more than we recognize, because we focus on those onesies and twosies of those situations that gain probably the ear, the career field. But I'm willing to bet that we probably have a lot more success stories out there than we do have failures.
I agree with that 110%. And it is that mentality change, right? It is understanding that we do operate within a negative space. Our career field is investigating injuries and fatalities and damage and looking for weaknesses, hazards, what could harm people. It's always operating within a negative space. So taking that mindset and understanding, hey, what are the strengths of my older senior leaders, and also them seeing what are the strengths of my new and up and coming safety professionals. And then when you identify all your strengths, see how they can collaborate to help each other move forward into making our spaces, our installation better, safer.
Great point. I think it comes with the both parties. I'm going to talk to the 0018s right now. Is maybe sometimes recognizing where your shortcomings are. If you know that you haven't attended a professional development course in a while, or a EPR writing seminar, award, 1206 writing seminar. If you haven't done that in a while, but you're responsible for supervising some staff sergeants, tech sergeants, even master sergeants, there may be a gap in your development right there. So I encourage those supervisors to recognize that. Just recognize you're responsible for somebody's career, so you have to get better. You're going to have to level up. You can't stay at this level and still expect to earn that respect of your subordinates. They're going to look to you for guidance, and if you can't maintain your credibility, I talked about the credibility of the 1SOs in the beginning, like our newest 1SOs, but at the same time, if our civilian counterparts can't maintain their credibility, that's going to create a problem as well. Right. So I encourage them. There's no fault in raising your hand and asking your be it command chief, first sergeant, who you ever have at the wing, or even leveling that up and asking the MASCOM functional manager Say, hey, sir, ma'am, I haven't written an EPR in a while. Could you help me do this or help me review this? There's no foul in doing that. But I think the foul comes when we pretend or we just put half effort into it because we don't know. I think that's where the problem comes.
Right, Chief. That's correct. I do always see and I feel that there has been some people get comfortable in their position, whether it be military or civilian, and accelerate change says it perfectly. Accelerate change. So that means if you're comfortable and you're not moving forward or in the right direction to progress us into a better situation, and for us, whether it's personally and or for your organization, we're wrong. We need to be accelerating change and we need to be moving forward. And so I encourage everyone out there to see and to identify where you need to improve, and when you need to look inward and see what you need to do to help your office, your installation, your people to do better and to be better and to be safe. It's one of the hardest things for any of us to do, and especially when you stay. We love the continuity, we love the experience, but then sometimes we get into the mindset, all right, I already checked those boxes. What else can I do? Well, there is a lot of other things we can do to be better leaders, better supervisors, better airmen, better civilians, and that's just even being a better speaker, being a better positive influencer inside your office by, always bringing the positive quotes or the positivity. Or the donuts. Yes, we have a lot of those, bringing them in our office for real. So it is important for us to keep track of where we're at in our office and where we're at in our personal and professional development, so we can continue to always see what can we do better. Not because we're just not good with the status quo. If it's a great product, we don't expect you to change it if it's great. But there is areas of improvement. Focus on those and see where we can move. We are understanding that there's a lot of safety officers that do amazing things out there, and sometimes we are not able to capture the lives we save, but we do need to understand that where we are sometimes isn't where we need to be.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And sometimes we just need to find that path and find those people that will take us where we need to be.
You touched on a few times, accelerate, change, and lose. And I go back to the first podcast, and I encourage folks to read those documents. Just don't latch on to the buzzword accelerate, change, or lose. Dig down deeper and understand what the A, B, C, D is, and apply that as you look for improvements in your processes, and not just be out there, General Brown, Chief Master, accelerate, change, or lose. We need to change this, this, and this. That's not the true intent. The true intent is, looking at your processes and seeing where there are inefficiencies and where there can be some improvements made, and not waiting to make those improvements. But it's going to take all of us pausing and reading, becoming familiar with those documents. Again, not just latching onto the buzzword, accelerate, change, or lose, which I see a lot of people do. And it's catchy, but
right.
We need to be more responsible and read further into it, and then come out with probably more of a strategic approach to making changes. And that's what I mean when I talked about earlier, is identifying problems more in a problem statement format. And that would help, again, with that credibility piece, when you go to present that to those leaders in your organization. They can look and see, okay, this individual has done the legwork. They've identified a problem. I see, okay, what this problem is. They can see what recommended improvements you're making, and then go from there. But back to really knowing and understanding what accelerate, change, lose is, and what that could mean to your organization.
Roger that. So the chief talked about earlier about the A, B, C, and D. The A is for airmen, B is for bureaucracy, C is for competition, and D is for design. Now it's up to you to go figure out what all those mean and what every single one of those entails. So go ahead and do that homework, for not just for yourself, but for your teammates, and Before we close this out, I want to see if you want to talk about any big rocks coming up or any things we're going to talk about in the future. You can let the teammates know.
Absolutely, big rock. So one big rock is duty identifier tabs. Send a message out to the MAJCOM functional managers. I know we got a lot of our 1SOs out there chomping at the bit to show their unit pride or their career field pride by displaying the duty identifier tab on their uniform. Just I ask you to be patient. They haven't been approved yet. I know a lot of AFSCs out there wearing them. I see different ones in the building all over base. But rest assured that the half A1 has not approved any tabs yet. So I just ask you to be patient out there. And as soon as they are approved, we'll get that word out.
Roger that.
Second thing is, mental health is one that I've been looking at over the last several months for the career field. Worked with a Tiger team and some mental health SMEs to identify some pre-exposure type training. And I think that was important for our career field. And some of you have heard me say this before, and you touched on a little bit earlier. I think safety is one of those career fields. We constantly, I call it living this negative headspace. We're constantly dealing with property that's broken, damaged, individuals that are severely injured or sometimes even death. Some of our 1SOs have to respond to scenes where there are like human remains or bloody scenes or just stuff that nobody is really prepared for. So trying to do the best we can to prepare folks in the career field for what they may encounter in scenarios like that. So I think it's important. I've heard of some of our airmen struggling after responding to mishap scenes, and it's understandable. Some of the stuff they have to see is not normal. So I don't necessarily want to normalize what they're seeing, but I want to normalize us as leaders in the career field, supervisor, OSMs, just wingmen in general, just recognizing that, if our subordinates respond to a mishap scene where that has occurred, to follow up with them. Don't wait for them to come seek help. Just recognize what they saw is not normal. Let's normalize us looking out for them. So more to follow on that. I hope our next podcast I'll look to talk a little bit further into that.
Roger that. So you guys can look forward to talking about mental health, and we'll probably maybe even get some mental health SMEs involved, and we'll definitely be pushing on that topic a lot more so we can all understand that it's something we need to talk about more often. So you have anything else to close out with, Chief?
All the 0018s, 1SOs, our guardsmen, reservists, I just want to thank you for everything that you do. In this job, we tend to focus on the negative, and I know we don't necessarily really focus on our wins that we do have. I know a lot of you guys are out there crushing it, working hard, keeping us safe, and I do recognize that, and I just want to say thank you.
Definitely, and thank you as well. So tune in for our next safety chat. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Chief. Thanks to our awesome PA for always hooking us up with some awesomeness, and see you guys next time.